Hello and welcome to the final Matchbook Champions League podcast of the season. That means we've only got one game to look ahead in this season's competition. It is the showpiece coming up at the weekend between Manchester City and Chelsea. But we thought, because we've got another European final this week as well, we'd include the Europa League as well. So 2 games for us to look at today in our final show of the season. And we're hoping to end the week and end the season as we have been for the majority of the campaign, and that is in profit, thanks to largely the expertise of brothers Ian Broadrick and Mark O'Hare, who joined me once again for this final show of the season. Before we get to the games, let's just remind you guys of Matchbook's fantastic sign-up offer. If you haven't signed up already, this is a brilliant reason to do so. You get 0% commission on all sports for 30 days. You must use the bonus code INSIGHTS. You must be a new customer, of course, and you must be over 18. But if you sign up nowish, that deal is going to see you over for the Euros as well. So great offer, that 0% commission on all sports for 30 days. Bonus code INSIGHTS. Right, so to the Champions League final then. We've been talking about this competition all season, of course, on the Matchbook Champions League podcast. And then there were 2, Manchester City, who have been the favourites all season. They've been pre-season favourites for the Champions League for the last few years. They've finally done it. They're there in the final now. You can get them at 1.91 to win in 90 minutes. Chelsea at 4.6, and the draw is at 3.54. On the handicap, you can get City minus a goal start at 1.91, Chelsea plus a half goal at 1.99. The goal line is at 2.25, overs at 2.07, unders at 1.83. Of course, we're live across Matchbook's social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube as well, broadcasting live. So if you want to get involved in the program, ask us questions, give us your thoughts on the 2 different games, please do so as well. I'll go to Brothers first for the Champions League final, Brothers, because you have you've got a vested interest in this game, being a pretty vocal and passionate Chelsea supporter. Are you going with your head or are you going with your heart?
I am going with my heart, which tells me that if I back Chelsea, we'll definitely lose. Look, I think it's a very difficult game to work. There's a lot of imponderables in this, and it's not a game that I think you can approach with a huge amount of confidence. Looking at Chelsea, first of all, I mean, obviously I'm a fan, but I think Chelsea have struggled in recent games. They've not been convincing at all. They've lost 3 of the last 4. Obviously, against Aston Villa at the weekend, that was a very important game for them to try and win. They failed to do so and looked, unusually sort of dodgy at the back. And I think they're coming into this game without the same degree of confidence that they might have had a month ago. So I'm looking at it, and I think, for me, Chelsea are looking a bit so. Now, obviously, there's injury doubts for them as well. So at the moment, it looks as though Mendy will be fit. I would imagine they'll do everything they can to get him to play. And it didn't look too serious, the injury that forced him off at the weekend. So hopefully he's going to be okay. It looks as though Kante will play. Again, he's been suffering from a hamstring issue. Whether or not he is up to full speed is going to be another issue for them, because obviously, Kante's dynamism in central midfield is one of the key reasons that Chelsea have been so good in the second half of the season.
He was huge at the semi-final against Real Madrid, wasn't he?
I mean, just, he was the difference for me. You saw, I mean, for the first time probably this season in Europe, you really saw the age of Kroos and Modric in that game, just because they just couldn't keep up with him, and they didn't have an answer for that dynamism. And so, if he is, slightly, or if he's unable to perform at that level because he's got a hamstring issue, then that's obviously going to be an issue for Chelsea. You hope he's going to be fit and able to perform as a fan, but it's a worry. At the back, Christensen, again, is viewed as probably going to be able to return. I don't think Tuchel will want to play Reece James in the back 3 in this game. Man City, one of their strengths is playing balls down channels and looking to get in behind defences. And I think you're going to want to have a natural central defender in there. And Christensen's played very well. But again, you've got someone who's coming potentially in for a first game after an injury break. And you worry that these players might break down if they're being rushed for this game. it's a concern. And so, I mean, I expect to see Christensen start. I expect probably Azpilicueta to shift out to right back, or to remain a right back, rather, sorry, as he's been playing there recently with Reece James in the back three. Silva and Rudiger pick themselves, and they've been fantastic. And Chilwell at left back is obviously very solid. So, but I think if you look at that Chelsea team, the best Chelsea team in inverted commas, there are doubts over your best defensive or best midfielder in Kante, and a slight doubt over one of your centre backs, in fitness terms, and that's a worry for me. I mean, looking at Man City, I feel as though it's difficult to judge them too much because they won the league a while ago, so their performances have to be taken through the prism of that a little bit. With, moving the team around. Obviously, they had Aguero's final game at the weekend where they gone.
Didn't Chelsea beat Manchester City a couple of weeks ago?
We did, but I mean that was a game where we weren't playing what I would consider to be Manchester City's first team. I think Chelsea have beaten Man City the last twice we played them, but on neither occasion would you say that was the team that's going to rock up for the Champions League final. And I think the difficulty for me is that Chelsea actually have quite a good record against Man City this season, and I'm sure Mark will expand on that because I know he feels as though there's some value in laying Man City, but. For me, I think you look back at the league game that Chelsea lost 3-1 earlier in the season, and that was the team that I expect to rock up this weekend for Man City. And we just weren't at the races there. Now, yes, we had Lampard in charge, Tuchel's come in and sorted out the defence, and we've been fantastic. But I think looking at it, it's just a very, very tricky game to assess. And I think Man City are coming in here, they've refreshed their best players, they've been able to give them a rest. They're coming in with a lot of confidence. They've started scoring goals again. And, one of the criticisms I've raised about Man City earlier in the competition is that for all of their possession and all of their quality and all the chances they create, they don't score enough goals. But in the last few weeks, they have been scoring more. Now, partly that's down to the fact they've been playing a more open style because they don't really care so much now they've won the league and they were just sort of, having a bit of fun to a certain extent. But for me, I think looking at it, Man City are the better side. I mean, you have to accept that. And I think getting nearly even money on them to win the game in a match where there are doubts over Chelsea's, better players in midfield and defence, and there are doubts over Chelsea's ability going forwards. Because, again, Chelsea, much as I love them, we have been just so frustrating going forwards this season. I mean, Werner, if ever you feel sorry for a player, I mean, he puts himself in these fantastic positions and just has a nightmare in front of goal. And he's a top quality player. We know he's a top quality player, but he's just had one of those just seasons from hell where whatever he does, he's ruled slightly offside, or it hits an arm, or it just, he miskicks. So I expect to see Werner play, and I expect Pulisic to play, and I expect us to try and utilise their pace. But it worries me that Chelsea will just get outscored in this game. Okay,
listen, we're 8.5 minutes into the programme and I haven't heard a word from Mark O'Hare.
I'm so sorry, that was a real...
That's not your fault. Not your fault at all. Mark, tell us why you quite fancy Chelsea.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Brothers has made a fantastic scene setter there, which I wouldn't disagree with a lot of what he said, really. But yeah, we have seen these two teams play each other twice quite recently, really. How many clues can you take from those two games? Not a huge amount, in fairness, because both teams decided to rest, rotate, and a couple of tactical quirks as well, particularly in the game at the Etihad recently too, from a City perspective. But yeah, Chelsea won them both, so I think they'll take a huge degree of confidence from that. I don't think we saw the best version of either team in both of those two matches. But the pattern of play I thought was quite interesting in both. Obviously, if you look back to the Etihad game, if Aguero converts the penalty, I don't think Chelsea win that match at all. But if we look at the prices that the two teams went off at in those games, in the FA Cup semi-final at neutral venue, City were around 1.8, went out to closer to evens before kick-off after the team news was confirmed. Similar story at the Etihad, 1.8, went off odds against after team news emerged. So they're hovering around 1.9 for this game, which I think is probably fair. But I did probably anticipate something slightly shorter based on those starting prices, particularly at Wembley not so long ago. Now, obviously, this is an incredibly efficient market. There's going to be no other sort of more efficient market in the football sphere this week. All eyes are on this. So much money has already entered the market. So if you're coming into this game and claiming that the market is completely wrong in certain aspects, you're going to be the one who's wrong, really. So we've got to respect it. So what can you really say that Broadrick hasn't really? I don't know really, but first goal is going to be huge, and I think first goal wins this match. So it's all down to Chelsea and how they approach this, because yes, those defeats recently against Leicester, Villa, Arsenal, on paper aren't very good from a Chelsea perspective, but I didn't think they were desperately bad in any of those three. I think they could have easily taken a result in all three of those matches if things had transpired their way, but it didn't. I think that something that probably disappointed me from a Chelsea perspective was their lack of inspiration, probably invention, ideas when they've been chasing games. They've looked well out of their comfort zone when conceding first, and that would be an issue. However, the flip side is if you score first, I would back Chelsea to see a game out. Their game management, their control, when in the lead, has looked very, very good. It's just when chasing games, they've looked a little bit headless recently. So, you're actually kind of taking a punt that Chelsea will start this game the better, hopefully grab a goal and be able to defend something here, because, as I say, I don't think there's a huge amount of teams who are better than Chelsea at the moment at killing opposition teams, squeezing matches and seeing the tie out. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be very similar to what we saw in the FA Cup final. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I don't think it's going to kind of impress in terms of a spectacle. I'm not going to be watching this match. I can't bear to see Chelsea win a European trophy, so I'll avoid it. But unders would have been my go-to. Clearly, the market's well on top of that already. So, by default, you'd take under 2.5 goals. It's not possible. So I just thought, take Chelsea with a half-goal start. The goal expectancy for this game is 2.35, according to the spreads. So for me, in this opportunity, when it's a tight game, I think Chelsea are probably slightly better than 4.6 than they are for this match. So I'm happy to get the dog on side at a nice price, getting around even money, possibly odds against on Chelsea with a half-goal start. And I can easily see this game going to extra time as well. So for me, it's slightly more appealing than taking City at odds-on quotes. Clearly, if both teams play to their full potential, City are the likeliest winners. The price is already factored into that. We've talked about the issues affecting Chelsea right now, the injuries. Fully expect Mendy and Kante to be fine and fit and available for this game, which boosts that. And I just think probably recent opinion is probably in City's favour because of Chelsea's results. And I think before we go into Saturday evening, more public money is going to go City's way than Chelsea's. And if you hold on a bit longer, I think you might be able to get slightly better on Chelsea than they currently are. But I'm happy to swim against the tide on this one.
What are you going to do instead of watch the Champions League final, Mark?
Anything else?
Anything. So you're just going to check your account. You're going to put the bet on, check your account, and then 2 hours later you're going to check. Okay, I won.
No, I'll have the score updates. I did this as well when Chelsea played in the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. I still haven't seen an inch of footage from that match because I knew if they did win, it would ruin my head forever. So I'm happy to avoid it.
I'm a Spurs fan, and that did not do Spurs any favours at all, Chelsea winning that particular Champions League final, denying Spurs Champions League football as it did. So anyway, let's not talk about that terrible evening for Spurs and QPR fans. Yes.
Just without wishing to rub any of that in, there were a couple of bits I just wanted to mention with what Mark said there. I mean, obviously the last 4 league games these guys have played against each other have gone over 2.5 goals, and both teams have. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic that they seem to have, that although on the face of it, as Mark's 100% correct, you'd expect for this to be a low-scoring affair. Oddly enough, they seem to manage to find a way to score against each other, albeit we've talked about the fact that both of them are potentially not as devastating going forwards as they might be.
You remember last season's final?
Yeah, I was going
to
say.
Thought there was going to be goals, and it was 1-0. It couldn't be
a Champions League final.
I do remember last season's final, oddly enough. Yeah. And one angle that I think might be interesting, actually, and I was going to mention, is in the goal scoring markets. One of the takeaways I took from the competition, and certainly the semi-final first leg, was PSG created a lot of problems for Man City from set pieces, and I thought. Chelsea are quite strong in that area. So if you were looking at goal scorer markets, at the moment, I mean, I was just looking at sort of, the fixed odds markets at the moment, because I don't think the betting markets are up on Matchbook just yet. But I think in terms of anytime goal scorers, you could probably do worse than maybe have a small look at Tony Rudiger at around he's 22-1 in the fixed odds markets to score any time. And, he's the sort of player who can pop up. He's very strong. And I think, Chelsea have got good delivery from out wide with Mount and James. And it's an area that they could hurt Man City. So I thought that was an angle that was worth considering as well for people.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Got a message from Jonah VR who says, "Never mind the Champions League final. When's the Conference League preview podcast out?" That is Coy's. Come on, you Spurs. Yes, Jonah, I'm all primed and ready and set for next season. We're going to have a dedicated podcast to the conference. No, we're not, but we might mention the final, I guess, next season, depending who's in it. I suppose. Really looking forward to European football next season. All right, that is the Champions League final. A couple of opposing approaches there. Brothers favouring Manchester City and Mark leaning towards Chelsea. Mark leading towards unders and Brothers giving you an idea why it might be over. So there you go, full overview. You decide. Let's talk about the Europa League final, which, in terms of finding a bet, this looks pretty clear cut. Even I can find a bet on this one. Villarreal to win 4.8 in their first ever European final. Manchester United 1.90 to win in 90 minutes, and the draw is at 3.54. Villarreal with a plus half a goal handicap at 1.96. Manchester United minus a goal at 1.92. The goal line, it's only 2.25. Again, overs at 1.84, unders at 2.06. I said even I could find it. I mean, the one that screams out for me is goals in this, given both respective teams' goal scoring records and goal scoring prowess. They have been scoring, both of them, regularly. They've both scored very regularly in the Europa League as well. Can definitely see them both scoring. Mark, am I right here?
Yeah, that's me done, really. You've done it for me. Both teams to score would be my play here. I just try and provide a bit more to that, but a bit more substance, really. I'm no surprised, really, to see United strong favourites. Close your ears, Phil, but I think there's Premier League has certainly surpassed La Liga in the past couple of seasons in terms of quality and strength, and I think style and approach as well. I've talked about it a few times. The pace of the Premier League as well. I think you can see that pay in certainly some games between the two leagues. But going back to price, United were 2.5 against Sevilla on neutral ground last season in the Europa League semi-finals. Now, I think United have grown and improved since then. I also think that Sevilla's side last season was a tick or two above the current Villarreal side as well. But they are still very difficult to beat. Undoubtedly, they've got threats there. Probably slightly underperformed domestically compared to what they've done in Europe. Certainly go back to August when they made some really sort of eye-catching signings. There was talk and suggestions that they could potentially kind of weasel their way into the top four in Spain. They actually finished 14 points off Sevilla. They only won once against the top six. That was against Sevilla not so long ago, who had a red card in the first 20, 30 minutes. And that was also the only time this season they've scored more than once against the top six as well. So they have had an issue in terms of seeing off the big boys in Spain, but in Europe they've been great fun to follow. And there's that danger in writing Villarreal off. This is such a huge occasion. They're going to relish that role as being an underdog. They've got absolutely nothing to lose, and they'll draw inspiration from Spanish sides.
They've got Unai Emery. They've got Unai Emery.
They have. So there's a huge amount of experience on their side as well. And I think going forward, you just look at that forward line, players that they've got available to potentially play a part. And obviously, Gerard Moreno takes the lead role there, but there's impact players off the bench or potentially starting here. Chukwueze, Alcacer, Moy Gomez, Bacca. They're not second-rate players. They're all capable of causing problems. I think the both teams to score bet is really kind of comes into its own, really, when you look at the United's team news. Harry Maguire's fitness. I think if he was fine and available, United should be well capable of coping and getting a result. But the fact he's more likely to be missing, I know he's included in the squad, but he was on crutches last week. So, it'd be a really impressive turnaround if he's fit enough to play. I just think his absence sort of lends itself to Villarreal at least getting on the score sheet and potentially being slightly underrated in the market. 4.8 right now. I had them around 4.5. Not a huge amount of difference there, but certainly something to bear in mind. And I think the low goals line really did kind of stand out to me, because if Maguire's absence, it does come to fruition. I think there's definitely vulnerabilities about that United defence. And we've talked about, you have on your own podcast as well, Phil, Villarreal's forward threats. I just think both teams to score. It was around 2.1. It's been chipped into around 1.9. If you can get 1.9 or above, I think you're in a great position. And certainly that goal line could be attacked as well, which I think Brothers will be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it when we all agree. Obviously, I'm not here to give my opinion, but I think I've learned a thing or two off you guys after doing this podcast for so long now. And the goal line did stand out to me, Brothers. It looks low for a game with two teams who have got so much attacking potential.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Mark's covered a lot of what I would have said. I think it's, you look at Villarreal this season in the Europa League, and Emery's home competition, and they've scored in 13 of their 14 games. The only game they didn't score in was the second leg against Arsenal, when they were obviously playing to qualify, and we're very happy with a 0-0. They've got this fantastic attacking trio with Alcácer, Bakker, and Moreno, who's obviously been the star this season. If you look at Manchester United's defence without Maguire, I mean, it seems funny because I don't think Maguire, has necessarily is that brilliant a defender anyway, but he is, Manchester United's best central defender, I'd say. And they have looked very shaky. Man United have conceded in their last 7 games, I believe. And this game just screams goals. And I'm very surprised that the goal line at over 2.5 is set at odds against. I very much like both teams to score. I think obviously Chukwueze's fitness will be important. You forgot to mention, Phil, obviously, that there's a Spurs player in the final as well.
He might not be there. He might be an injured out, although he was training earlier this week. But yeah, Juan Foyth, the mighty Juan Foyth, might be featuring for Villarreal.
I mean, joking aside, one of the main features of that Arsenal victory was the fact that Chukwueze and Foyth were so good down that right-hand side. And Foyth was making those sort of underlapping runs inside Chukwueze. And they created a lot of problems, and I could easily see them doing similar sort of damage if they're fit against Manchester United. So yeah, I think you've covered it all. I like the angle of goals. I do think Manchester United are probably a fair bet to win it. Just looking at collateral form lines, I mean, they've already beaten Real Sociedad and excuse the Spanish pronunciation, by the way, and Granada, and they've beaten both of them comfortably in this competition. And both of those clubs are probably at a similar-ish level to Villarreal when it comes to La Liga. And I stand to be corrected there, but I'd say that they're probably, obviously Sociedad finished above them and Granada below them, but they're all there or thereabouts, aren't they? In that sort of 5th to 9th range. So I think getting Manchester United at around, if you can get them around 1.9, then I think that's a very fair bet, because Mark's touched on the fact that British clubs have done well against La Liga sides this season, apart from Arsenal, obviously, in the semi-final. But yeah, I think that would be my main angle on this is goals, very much so.
Over 2.5, by the way, at Matchbook is currently at 2.14. Most sportsbooks are only around about even, so it's looking like a very tasty bet, that over 2.5 goals as well. Okay, so those are the 2 European finals that we have to look forward to this week. Let's just, before we go, recap our best bets of the week. Guys, we don't have a huge amount to choose from, just a couple of games, but if you had to just, we've mentioned a few selections from each game as well. If you had to choose one selection from either game, what would it be for your best bet of the week? Mark, best bet?
Both teams scoring in the Europa League final, please.
Yes, I think so. I'm on board with that one. What about you, brothers?
Yeah, I'll have that one as well, please. I think that is the best bet. I think my next best would be over 2.5 in the same game. I think that's a very strong bet at the price. So.
Okay, the Europa League final, there's going to be goals. You heard it here first. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast, and for this season as well. Thank you everyone who's watched, listened, downloaded, sent us questions, comments. It's all very much appreciated. We really thank you for being with us this season. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you have as well. And we'll be back next season to tip more winners, hopefully. So enjoy the 2 European finals we have this week, and we'll speak very soon. Bye-bye.